Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review. But this time, we are in the year of 2026. Weird to see it, weird to hear it. Can't believe it's already here. But the college football playoffs still persist. The season is still going. And just like the wild games that happened in the quarterfinals, so did things in life. I've been without internet for about the last week and a half. That's why it hasn't really been, a lot of content going out on our Instagram and social media, or even the show coming out. The show is now coming out because of the internet problem we faced. And the only statement I will say about that is AT&T will not be receiving my business anytime soon. And I'm just going to leave it at that, but also moving into a new place. So things have been hectic on top of no internet. Hopefully by the semifinals recap episode, we'll be fully back to video. I know there's going to be still graphics, but my beautiful face is not here just yet. I promise it will be, though. And because of the delay in an episode coming out, what we're going to do is we're going to combine the quarterfinals recap and the semifinals preview episode in this episode, because tomorrow, on Thursday, we get our first game. Nay, we are blessed with our first game in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps us out, lets us know that you enjoyed the content and you want to be a part of the Under Review community. So let's get into the four headlines I have for what transpired in the college football playoff quarterfinals. First is Indiana. They're the first team in college football playoff history to win off of a bye the previous round in the playoffs. It's weird to say, but it's a statistic that we'll be bringing up more in the episode. Miami, the U, shuts down Ohio State in a game who we all thought had a prolific offense, but I believe it just got exposed. Ole Miss and Georgia gave us really the game. Ole Miss and Georgia gave us, how I would say, the game we've all been waiting for in these playoffs, and I think since the playoffs began last year. And the last team with the win, Oregon, they just look more complete than we realized, or at least I will admit I realized coming into the playoffs. And one company that is way more complete than you would realize is a good friend of ours, 38 Hot Tubs. Because 38 Hot Tubs is a family-owned and American-built business supplying Viking tubs that feature high-quality material and superior components, ensuring that every aspect of the hot tub is designed to last for years to come. When it comes to relaxation, recovery, and overall well-being, few things compare to the soothing experience of a quality hot tub. And for Rob Abel, it's all about helping people improve their health and quality of life. Whether you're an athlete looking for muscle recovery or someone who simply wants to unwind after a long day, soaking in a hot tub can provide numerous benefits. The ideal combination of warm water and hydrotherapy jets can ease tension and lower cortisol levels to help combat anxiety. A hot tub even promotes better blood flow, which leads to better muscle recovery, reduced soreness, and improved flexibility, combined with overall cardiovascular health improvements. Even a nice nighttime soak can improve sleep quality by relaxing the body and mind before bed. And if you're interested in experiencing the therapeutic benefits of a Viking spa, reach out to Rob Abel today. If you mention this ad to Rob, your journey to relaxation and wellness starts with a $200 discount off one spa and $600 for an order of two. 38 Hot Tubs, whether you're looking for a relief from sore muscles, a way to enhance your fitness routine, or simply a place to relax with family and friends, Rob is here to help you find the perfect hot tub to fit your needs. Now, let's take college football playoffs under review. And we're going to go through these as the order of when they were played. So that takes us to the first game. Number 10 seed Miami beats the number 2 seed Ohio State 24-14. Miami came out the gate and shocked us all. Ohio State was, I believe, a 9-point favorite, 9.5-point favorite in this game. And Miami showed up and got 14 points on the board with 10 minutes left in the second quarter. They really set the tone, and what showed up the most for Miami in this game was obviously the defense. Now, it wasn't in the amount of yards they were able to stop Ohio State, but it really came in them able to get quarterback pressure, only sending 4 defensive players to the quarterback. And they really exposed Julian Sayin. Everyone forgot, yes, he was a Heisman contender, but everyone forgot he's still a baby. He still has so much room to grow, and we show it. Miami exposed them, showing that he does need room to grow. And what Ohio State really shot themselves in the foot with this season was that they didn't really play anyone. Everyone, and the writing was on the wall. We just didn't see it because it was a week 1 game where they beat Texas, who ended up having a decent season, but they played against a very hard defense, and they only showed up with 14 points. Same thing in this game. They only showed up with 14 points, and when they played Indiana, another great defense, they only showed up with 10. What do I mean by this? We were distracted by all the hoopla that happened during their easy schedule between week 1 and the Big Ten championship, because between then, there was never any room for Julian Sayin to have tough experiences to where he could grow, he could learn, he could develop as much as he should have this season. And because of that, it showed up in the postseason when they needed it most. This is one of those instances where a team like Ohio State would have benefited from a tune-up game, and yes, I'm going to say tune-up game, against Tulane or JMU, which is one reason which I may talk a little bit more on. I think that this could be the end of the buys as we know it. But Miami and Carson Beck. Carson Beck, he didn't do anything spectacular. He didn't do anything revolutionary. But why do you need that when you have a great defense and a defense that's going to be able to get a pick 6 and help out Carson Beck? Because Carson Beck, he is the veteran. He's the veteran that Miami went out and shoveled, yes, a lot of money for, and now it's paying off. They were given the opportunity. They were given the opportunity to get Carson Beck, someone with experience, with a veteran mindset, who has played in these tough games, and he was able to finish it out. And because of that, Mario Cristobal, I believe, trusted his quarterback. He trusted Carson Beck to get him through the game. And when it came down to the end of the game, Mario Cristobal did not drop the ball this time. It felt like he knew that he was not going to mess up his clock management. It felt like he knew the tempo that he wanted for his offense when they were driving down the field, because it was a close game still at that point. And he just didn't flinch. He never really flinched in what was a close game, which we have seen time and time again him flinch. Terrible clock management, terrible play calling, or just not realizing the situation you're in. But this time, things were different. He didn't drop the ball, and Miami was able to get it done. When we look at Ohio State, though, they are going to come back next year with a vengeance. They're going to be a great team still. They're going to retain a lot of key players, especially on the offense. But the biggest thing needs to be, how will they develop Julian Sayin? Julian Sayin, I believe this season, was able to rely on those skill players like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. Lapsed out there for a second. He was able to rely on those players. But when they played a good defense, they got exposed. And one aspect of this Miami defense that really limited Ohio State to only relying on Julian Sayin was the amount of rushing yards Ohio State was able to get against Miami. It was 45, severely limited to what they have been able to do. And when they are limited to only 3 third down conversions, it really just shows how dominant this Miami front was against Ohio State. And like I said before, this Ohio State team, yeah, they were undefeated during the regular season and going into the Big Ten championship. But they didn't play these tough defenses, or at least the top 10 defenses that are populated within this tournament. And I think one of the biggest things that very much hurt Ohio State was that they were limited the amount of time to give their playmakers the ball. Miami knew they had to slow down the tempo, and they did so every chance they got, which was huge in limiting an Ohio State team that has built a roster with talent that should develop into a better team next year and should make it deeper in the playoffs. But Miami came into this one. I said Miami has to win by getting a big jump start at the beginning. They did, and they were able to hold on to it, and Crystal Ball did not drop it. So Miami moves on to the semifinals after defeating Ohio State 24-14. Now, Oregon and Texas Tech. Number 5 seed Oregon shuts out number 4 Texas Tech 24-0. My initial reaction to this game was, wow, Texas Tech played a very bad game of football, very bad brand. But looking back at it, their defense did exactly what it has done all season. Texas Tech's defense was dominant. They were able to slow down an Oregon offense that really was prolific this season, and a team that really just put points on the board, let's be honest. So I will give Texas Tech the credit that, yes, limiting them to the amount of points they got is a good thing. But I just don't know if it was enough, because Behren Morton, he had the worst QBR coming into this game. It's my fault for not realizing that. But Texas Tech and this Behren Morton, we saw the signs against Utah with bad game, but they won the game. Why is that? Because Hammond, their backup, came in. They didn't have that luxury this time in the playoffs because he has been fighting an injury. And it just seemed like the Texas Tech offense was not ready for the Oregon defense. The Oregon offense complemented their defense. Their offense wasn't anything flashy. They were able to get things done because this Texas Tech defense was very good, but still they dominated the game. And coming out of this game, Oregon just looks like they have a more complete team than what I thought going into this game. I thought that their youth and inexperience would limit them, but it almost seems like it has made them prepared. It feels like they made themselves prepare more because of that fact. They are the young team. They are the ones with millions of dollars that treat it more like a job than it is a game, and treat it like a job they did, because they put the business on Texas Tech, limiting Texas Tech to 78 rushing yards, 137 passing yards, 6 for 16 on third downs. While Oregon's offense just absolutely belittled the Texas Tech defense that was so just known for being violent on the front lines and having a dominant linebacking core. But Oregon was still able to put over 300 total yards on them in this game and control the clock almost 2 to 3 in a fraction, if you would say so. Oregon, they're deadly coming into this semifinals. With their tune-up game against JMU, with this game showing everyone that they do belong, it's now about, can they continue this success? Can they continue the complete game that they continue to play? Because their offense was tested. Their defense, not so much. And so it'll be interesting to see how this defense evolves going into the next game. For Oregon, I think that this is a team, a program that has been so close so many years that is starting to seep into the culture of how hard they work. Or is it just the money that they pour into it? I think Oregon has always been there in the national title conversation, but I think with NIL, they're able to back it up even a little bit more with the depth that they're able to have. It's not just a flashy offense anymore. It is a stout defense that is now there since Dan Lanning has arrived in Eugene, Oregon. How they finish the season will be interesting. But for Texas Tech, this was a successful test. They put $28 million into this roster. They chose a head coach that is willing to stay, wants to stay. They just need to find the right quarterback and get some better weapons on the offense. And I think Texas Tech is still going to be a team in the close future that will still be in the conversation, but will have a chance every, I'd say, 3 years to actually win the national championship. It just depends on if they can find the right quarterback. And I think they might be able to in a season or two. So both of these teams, I don't think are going anywhere. I think the Big 12, it's open for Texas Tech to be the new big dog. For Oregon, I think it will always have an opportunity to be in the conversation, be in the playoff bubble because of the brand of football they have and the talent that they surround themselves with. So Oregon beating Texas Tech 24-0 to advance. And now we get to the third game, the Rose Bowl. And no, I did not make up the internet just because I didn't want to go over this, or if you thought that the podcast was done because Alabama lost horrifically and I couldn't bear it. Oh, just don't worry, because it's here. Indiana, the number 1 seed, beats the number 9 seed Alabama Crimson Tide 38-3. I would say this was a close game up until the third quarter when Ty Simpson was, I will quote unquote, injured and fumbled the ball. As soon as that happened, it felt like the Alabama sideline had crumbled. It felt like the Alabama offense was deflated. It felt like Alabama didn't have any fight anymore. And that allowed Indiana to do what Curt Cignetti has loved to do all season. That is run up the score and show everyone that they belong, that they are a force to be reckoned with. They don't care who you are. They are going to wear you out. And they wore that little Bama Heine out this game. Indiana with Fernando Mendoza, he was making not only great throws, but almost perfect throws and perfect placement for his Indiana wide receivers and tight ends to grab in this game. They were able to rack up over 407 yards in this game on offense, and it showed with the score. But one thing I will say is that this Indiana team was able to not only beat Alabama on defense, but their offense and the offensive play calling was phenomenal. It seemed like every play, every scoring drive, they had players 2 or 3 yards, steps, feet, whatever you want to say. They were always a step ahead of the Alabama defender, except for that first drive. Alabama came out the gate, giving them different looks than what Indiana was used to, and it took Indiana about 2 drives to just get right back into the driver's seat and continue to do what they do. Indiana has done wonders this season. This Indiana team, I think, to my dismay and everyone else's, thought that last year was a flash in the pan year. It was a, whoa, they're here, wake up moment, but they're not going to be national championship there. That was this moment. That was the national championship. We are here to take it. Game, mentality, and just overall performance that I saw from Indiana. They were able to bully an SEC defense, racking up 215 yards. They were able to control the game, controlling the time of possession, 34 minutes and 21 seconds to Alabama's 25 minutes. They were able to consistently get third downs because they were already the number 1 in the nation coming into this game with that, going 9-14. This was just overall the wake-up call for everyone in the nation that Indiana is for real and they are here in the Big Ten, which is dangerous for the Big Ten. Curt Cignetti signed an extension. He's going to be there for a while. He's going to be a problem, and I think that he will be able to continue this sustained success. Now, the Alabama Crimson Tide. This was about one of the worst performances that the team as a whole faced. on that first drive, Alabama came out hot. They came out swinging on defense. They were able to limit Indiana in what they could do. And that was about the only bright spot in the game, except for 3 points later in the second half. Alabama, the catches, they were there. There was just no consistency in the play calling. There was no consistency in the run game. Actually, there practically was no run game, but that was the story all season. Indiana limited Alabama to 23 rushing yards with 17 attempts. They were able to limit the passing yards Alabama had to 170 and only 3 for 11 third downs, basically. It was a beating on Alabama. Alabama, as fans, we have not seen this since 1998. Some people born after the Nick Saban era or when he arrived have not ever experienced a loss like this in their lifetime. And that's something Alabama fans are going to have to wake up to. Now, I think the biggest thing with Alabama in this game was we knew that this was a magical season. There was a difference between this team from week 2 to week 8. And outside of that time, the team was different. It didn't seem complete. It didn't seem all the way there. And that continued into the playoffs. The win against Oklahoma in Norman, that was nothing short of a great game. But I believe it was a crumble of one team and rise of another. I think Alabama was ready for the test. I don't think Oklahoma was. The curse for Oklahoma was still there. But let's get back to this game. I think the biggest statement I can make for this game and for the Crimson Tide is something outside of the game, or what this game represented, or what some people think it represents, because there's very little good to talk about this Alabama performance. But what I will say is this. I have seen everywhere on social media that Alabama, the dynasty, is over. Oh my gosh, it's finally toppled. Look how soft this team is. Alabama, they're just a nobody. They're just everyone else. And it's ironic that everyone wants to say the dynasty's over after Alabama, a football program, just made it to the quarterfinals, not off of a bye, but winning a game. A team that went and played in the SEC championship. A team that has lost, yes, the best head coach in all of college football 2 years ago. Of course, there's going to be a slump. There's going to have to be a rebuild year with a new team, with a new program because of NIL. I'm just surprised no one realized this when Alabama went 9-4 last season. Where were all the dynasty's over? It sounds like everyone saying the dynasty's over didn't even make it to the playoffs, or Alabama's a soft team. They're a nobody. They're a nobody in the playoffs, so they got to be somebody, because there's a lot of nobodies in this college football world, and I think about 124 of them are actually sitting at home instead of watching this game. This was actually the most watched college football playoff game to date, or at least in this season, I believe. So the real question is the dynasty over, or are you just finally happy that Alabama's not going to the national championship every other year? And I think it's the latter of that, because I think Alabama is here to stay. Alabama won a playoff game. They made it to the quarterfinals. That's a lot further than 128 teams in the college football. So I don't think that there's any warrant for they are dead in the water, the culture's gone. Maybe the culture is gone, but it's a different culture that you just got to accept. But going back to Indiana, great win for them. It was truly a beating. Indiana now is looking like the favorite to win it all, but we'll discuss that in the preview. And then that takes us to the last game that happened in the quarterfinals. The ultimate classic, a game that will definitely be in the college football under review archives. And that is Ole Miss beating Georgia 39-34. This was insane. This was a work of art. That is what it was. It was poetry in motion. Give it any title you want. It was beautiful. Ole Miss has never, I believe, won 10 games until Lane Kiffin got there. Lane brings them to consistent 10 wins and then says bye as soon as they're about to get to the playoff. And in the playoff, they get. And not only do they get in, but they win one game. And now they have won two, creating a precedent in Ole Miss culture, history, whatever you want to call it. For the first time ever, they have a legitimate shot to win the national championship. And it is all because of the Prince of Promise, Trinidad Chambliss. He was beautiful. And I'll say this, credit to Georgia. You just messed up in this game. How did you mess up? You gave Trinidad Chambliss a minute, about 56 seconds left on the clock to beat you. And that's exactly what he did. It's nothing short of amazing what this man has done, what Ole Miss has been able to do this season with him as their quarterback, and all the tumultuous drama that has happened in the last 2 months. And some people would call it magical. I just think it is a perfect storm that is rolling through the playoffs, and it is lightning in a bottle that you cannot let go of. Ole Miss in this game looked like they were going to be, not cut out for it. Georgia with the early lead, early start, and then things kind of shifted around. Ole Miss kind of kept staying in the game, and Georgia was getting on their backs. But the biggest thing was that Georgia was not great on third downs. They were about the same in everything else. But the biggest thing was Gunnar Stockton seemed to have this kind of play he has had all season where he runs and scrambles outside the pocket, looks like he's about to go down, and then he finds a receiver and they are able to move the chains. Well, that was not able to work in this game, nor did Mike Bobo's game plan work, because Mike Bobo called this game a lot different than I thought he was going to do, and a lot different in that SEC championship game. It felt conservative. It felt old branded when you are playing an Ole Miss team that's going to come at you fast, and they have a dynamic defense. Not one of the best, I'll say, but still dynamic enough to give you problems. And give Georgia problems they did consistently throughout this game. Is this the end of Georgia football? No, it's just like Alabama, like I said earlier. Georgia had a younger team than what they're used to. They rebuilt their defense. They're going to come back next year stronger and better, just like Ohio State. The difference was you just gave Trinidad Chambliss enough time on the clock to make some magic, and magic is what happened, and that's sadly how your downfall happened this season. Second year in a row, Georgia has gotten that first round bye. Second year in a row, they have lost that first round bye, or that second round game after the bye. Credit to the Ole Miss special teams too. Their kicker, I believe, now has a Sugar Bowl record, which is just insane. Awesome to see that from him. Ole Miss, though, they are coming into this next round hot. They're going into the semifinals as what I would call the favorite in the fans' eye. I believe they are the Cinderella story, if you want to air quote that, just because of Lane leaving and everything that's happened around this team. But I don't think that there's anything Cinderella about them. I just think that they are on a magical run that we are all blessed to witness this season. So Ole Miss is going on to the next round, beating them dogs after beating them 39-34. Now, that concludes our discussion of the quarterfinals. What I will say to cap off about the quarterfinals is this. I thought all of these games, I would say all of them. The Ole Miss Georgia game and the Miami Ohio State game were good in their own right, I believe. But one stat that just comes back up that I can't get out of my head is that after 2 years of this new 12 seed format, the teams that receive a first round bye that start their postseason in the quarterfinals, they have combined for a 1-7 win-loss record. 1-7 win-loss record. I think that this committee is going to look at themselves and look at the conferences and say, hey, this expansion, it needs to happen. I think it's going to happen to 16 teams. And I also think they are going to get rid of byes because that's the only way that makes sense. So I think the advocacy group for the 16 team playoff will get in because you've got Notre Dame too on the outside whining to everyone saying, oh, we could have beaten them. We could have beaten them. Shut up, Notre Dame. You're not in it. You decided not to play. So you don't get any right to say you could have won anything. In this 16 team playoff, yeah, you would get in. But at that point, it just feels like a participation trophy. But something will be done about these first round byes. And I think that the only way they can do something about them is with the expansion of the 16 team playoff. So that concludes the recap of the quarterfinals. And now we are going to go into our semifinals preview. So on Thursday at 7:30 p.m., this is I believe Eastern time. Let me double check this. But you've got Miami and Ole Miss playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Now, yes, 6:30 p.m. This will be a great game, I think. You're going to have a top 10 defense against a top 10 offense. This is going to be one of the most electric games because I think it is going to be a rock fight that also has explosive plays throughout the game. Ole Miss is coming into this game with the second best offense in the nation, but their defense is lacking. They are both about the same on third down percentage, with Miami just ousting them a little bit by over a point. And for Miami, when we're looking at it, their offense is average, but their defense is what sets them apart. They are able to come at you with everything they have, and they're able to rely on their offense to keep them consistent and give them rest by slowly running down the clock and having consistent drives. They did it against Texas A&M. They just did it against Ohio State. But the only difference is that I think this Ole Miss is a lot better than both of those offenses. So it's going to be a struggle. The thing that I think the best thing that Ole Miss has going for it is two words. It's Trinidad Chambliss. You give the football to this guy, give this man the ball, this little baby in his hands, and he can make wonders. He can create magic. He can do anything he wants and can manipulate the field any way he pleases. And that's the biggest thing that Ole Miss has going for them. It is why they have won these games. So I think if Miami can even hinder some of that magic, Ole Miss may very well be in trouble. Now, for the Ole Miss defense, they don't have to face anything dramatic. They don't have to face anything back-breaking, but they have to play against one of the most seasoned veterans in college football right now. And that seasoned veteran, his name's Carson Beck. Carson Beck, he hasn't been playing the most beautiful football, but he's been playing the most consistent, and he's been playing safe, but not too safe. He plays like he knows what he's doing. And that's because he's getting paid to do so, and he has won over 35 college football games in his career, and so he will do so. When I step back and look at this game, I think that Carson Beck wants this game more. I think Carson Beck will do a lot to not screw this game up. I think this defense will be able to handle the Ole Miss offense to a degree, but I think that this Ole Miss team will have the opportunity to make explosive plays down the field. But the question is how many explosive plays can happen against this Miami defense? And because of that, I just see Miami as being the team that's going to beat Ole Miss and stop the magic, because I think that this defense will have the ability to stop Ole Miss and limit them to those explosive plays. And when I start thinking about how many will happen, it doesn't seem like there's going to be many. And because of that, I think that this Miami team is going to show up and beat Ole Miss in the semifinal game in the Fiesta Bowl against a 13-1 Ole Miss team on Thursday. Now, we've got the Peach Bowl, and that's going to be Oregon against Indiana, the rematch from the regular season, and that will be Friday at 6:30 as well. So, yes, the rematch from earlier this season, Indiana handed Oregon its only loss. But the difference, I would say, is that Oregon's a little bit more seasoned. I think Oregon kind of understands the type of team they are now, not when they were playing Indiana kind of midway through the season. I think Oregon has a better sense of what they need to do and who they are going up against in this Indiana team. For Indiana, Curt Cignetti is going to be cold, he's going to be calm, and he's going to be calculated in anything and everything he does. And that sure as heck scares me, especially as an Alabama fan that went into the game last week. But this Oregon team, I think they have played the Indiana Hoosiers. They were close. I think this Oregon team has a chance to shock a lot of people. But I don't think Curt Cignetti is going to mess up this opportunity to take Indiana and this fan base to the height that they have never seen. And I think he's going to do everything he can with the Heisman-winning quarterback, with the skill position players around him, to formulate a game plan that has little to no error for Oregon to expose. When we're looking at it, the defense for Indiana is better than Oregon, and they're both in the top 10. The rushing offense for Indiana is better, and their total offense is better, with third down conversion rate being actually 11 points higher than Oregon. I think this all spells for an Indiana win, and a dominant one again to send Indiana to the national championship. I think Dante Moore, great quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be able to handle this Indiana defense again, even though he has a lot more under his belt. So give me Indiana to go and beat Oregon in this semifinal matchup. So that concludes our preview for the semifinals of the playoff. We will be back to our regular schedule. Saturday or Sunday, you can expect the semifinals recap episode to come out, and then we will let you know whenever the national championship preview episode comes out. Hopefully we'll be back to full video capabilities by next time. No promises, but there's a good chance we'll be there. So with that, I'm Nick Watts, and thank all of you for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.